pretty good.
Hat front, hat back. Let's go hat back. It makes my eye sockets seem deeper.
Is that an important characteristic?
It is. Yeah. You know, you can sort of tell someone's body fat percentage by how indented their skull looks.
Science.
Science. That is not true. Nobody studied that.
No.
I'm Nathan.
I'm Riley. Oh, nice.
Yeah, we got it correct this time.
We got it correct. Sometimes.
Yeah. And this is Recording Rural episode
5.
Episode 5.
Episode 5.
There we go. What are we talking about?
Well, I don't know if we really know, but I think we're going to talk about some obstacles that individuals face and maybe obstacles that I guess that we see on a day-to-day basis.
That's true. Obstacles that are sort of specific to rural context, although I'm sure there are people in urban contexts that would relate to the obstacles. But yeah, as always, trying to look at it through a rural lens.
Mm-hmm. What do you think from a client's perspective? What's the biggest obstacles or biggest barriers that they face when it comes to just like starting a health journey, or if you want to call it that?
I kind of have been thinking a lot about the small town element of like, you always know someone. I think that like if you were going to the gym for your first time and you don't want to look bad in front of average gym goers, I think that in a context where you go, well, at the end of the day, like, they don't know me, I don't know them, they can think whatever they want, then that's probably a small comfort, or at least it mitigates a lot of the stress. If you're going to a gym for the first time, or you're going to go run around your neighborhood for the first time, and you're like, there are people here literally who like know me, or like coworkers, or maybe they work for me. Like, you imagine being like a high school teacher and working out in a gym where like your students are there.
Yeah.
Things like that. I imagine that element of running into people that you know would be quite a stressful situation.
Mm-hmm. Could you, I guess, coming from the coach's lens then, could you flip that and maybe try and find a way to make that a positive? From like, hey, there's probably someone you already know that goes to a place or does a run or does whatever, and instantly flip it and be like, now you have someone to do it with or guide you, even if it isn't a coach or a trainer or whatever. It's just like someone, a colleague.
Totally. It's kind of like our the episode that we did a couple weeks ago about like how to incorporate community into your health and fitness journey. I think that making the jump into a gym or into a sport program or fitness endeavor when there are people that you already know in there, I think that like for a lot of people there's going to be like a higher level of humility that's required to enter into that. But at the end of the day, it's going to have like has the potential to be like more positive, I think, when you have friends in an area. But like, what do you do when the environment is filled with people who who are like not your friends?
Yeah.
Like, not to say to dramatize it and say that like they're your enemies, but just like, if you're someone who has quite a reputation in town, like a positive reputation, then starting a fitness journey can kind of make you feel, or kind of make you look like you went from being an environment where you're the top dog to like you're the whatever the opposite of a top dog is, the little puppy. We should make that an expression. The newbie.
Yeah.
Newbie sounds better than little puppy.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, I guess, not to close out that obstacle in a way, but like, what do you think what advice would you give someone like for maybe knows they want to start on that journey? Where's like the lowest barrier of entry that they could maybe start doing something but not have to face the pressures that would come with being right in that space where, you know, they are that quote unquote like visual newbie.
Yeah.
They can still be a newbie, but maybe not in that context.
Yeah. I think that it's nuanced, and I think that you're going to find different solutions for different people. I think, like, you know, if you're someone where money's not like really an obstacle, or rather that you've made the calculation as being worth it. I think like the whole home gym like lifestyle is kind of blowing up since COVID, and I think that is an option. I do hesitate to recommend that when someone is afraid of leaving their comfort zone, that they try to like find a way of being healthy without leaving their comfort zone. I kind of am someone where I'm like, if you can manage the social dynamics of being in a gym or being on a hiking group or whatever, if you can manage those dynamics, then you should try to manage those dynamics. You know, like you're gonna have some people where they're like, I don't want to go to the gym because it stresses me out. And then you're gonna have some people where they're like, I'm gonna have a full blown panic attack even thinking about it. And those are two different places to be in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that like the baby steps are gonna look differently between those two different people. But I think at the end of the day, like pushing yourself to be out of your comfort zone socially is only going to have positive repercussions for the most part.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe from the coach's point of view or your point of view, being the coach, what's the biggest barriers that you see or you face, whether it's working with clients or bringing clients on, or the conversations that are often had with clients? Like, maybe there's not a number one, maybe there's a few, but
yeah, there's a lot. I think that one of the things that we routinely talk about is like how in Canada, in the West in general, most of the time obesity is associated with low education and low income, as opposed to like everywhere else in the world where, you know, low income is associated with lack of food in general.
Yeah.
Whereas like here it's more correlated to unhealthy diet, whether that's due to, you know, this controversy around the expenses of healthy food, and that's a whole other can of worms about the cost of food in the North, but also, you know, how much of it is not a cost issue, it's an education issue. So we end up in a situation where our services, because they're not funded by the government, are very expensive, but also the group of people that need us the most are people who, you know, can't typically afford our services.
Yeah.
And there are like some ways around that. I have had, I've had clients that were funded by like varying bands around the area, like their indigenous status, like two particular bands permitted some financial support.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, there are some people where we just kind of have like very real conversations and go, okay, like at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, how can we like try to orchestrate this given your budget? What can we do independently versus what can we do dependently? Mm-hmm. So it's not it's not like black and white. It's like if you're struggling financially, you can't exercise, and if you have money, you can exercise as much as you want. That's usually like that's a way too black and white way of looking at it. There's always like a nuanced conversation, but at the end of the day, typically speaking, our biggest the people that need us the most are the people who can't afford us the most.
And I think that, you know, becomes not an obligation, I guess, but a guiding light for us for we need to find ways to get that education piece out in various like platforms, formats, and like ways of messaging. And I mean, I know it's one of the ways we wanted to do a podcast. It's just another way to get information out. But like, if you're consistently putting out education around healthier behaviors, ideally, because like it's not like we're the be all end all. We're like, if you work with us, we're this magic whatever. It's like, no, we have some good skills and the education to know these are some healthier things to do. These are some things we might want to limit from time to time. And if we can put more of the good information out there, ideally more people can consume it and take it upon themselves to do the biggest pillar things.
Right.
And where we can, I think, where we can do a little bit more is you get a little bit more of that individualized attention if you end up working with someone. But like the biggest pillars of like, do a little bit of movement, get enough sleep, what is healthy eating, and the things that go along with that. Like if you generally do that, like you're looking pretty healthy. It's not like a fix, but like you're definitely on the right path.
Totally. If you're like someone who's struggling, like if you're like mildly healthy, or say that you've been healthy but you're aging poorly, then like maybe those are contexts where to like take your health to the next level, a gym membership might be like more necessary. But if you're someone who has like suffered from obesity, and your parents have suffered from obesity, chances are the things that you need to know are more like the things that you need to do are more founded in like small educational approaches rather than like the necessity for a gym membership. Like some people just need to know how to make a salad.
Yeah.
Or they just know how to, they just need to know what a calorie is, or things like that. And I think like having more education seminars would be good.
Have you just read or like watched anything about the Blue Zone stuff? Have you heard of them?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna blank on the guy's name that started it. Dan something. Essentially, it's like there's these like what they've called blue zones around the world of like the people that live the longest. They have like the most 100-year-olds, and I'm gonna butcher exactly everything what it is, but it like in those hot spots, like there's not like a bunch of these people going into a gym. It's like the terrain that they live in enables them to have to like traverse and walk or bike.
Yeah.
And they're not driving everywhere.
Yeah.
Like they're generally, and I mean, nutrition is obviously a super confrontational topic, but like they're, generally more plant-based type foods.
Mm-hmm.
We had that episode around like social wellness. They have like they're very socially connected communities or areas. Some of it being like some religion stuff, others just like the ways that the communities like go out and like harvest food is very community oriented, and there's lots of connection. And because of the range of individuals, how all the 100+ year olds that there are, like they value all of the information that they like passed on through the generations. There's a myriad of like things that are very similar about all of these regions around the world.
That's cool.
And like, yeah, I've been slowly dipping my toe in just to like read about it. And it's like, for me, that's where like the education stuff comes. It's like, if we start doing more of some of those behavioral things with people and get that information out, generally I would say those behaviors in contexts, rural contexts, and kind of urban ones as well, if you have those information, maybe you do start, maybe you end up wanting to go into a gym, or other behaviors based on some of these ones start to occur, and people are gonna most likely be a lot more healthier and live longer, but actually have life in those years too, and not just be around.
Yeah, 100%. That's I like that because it's also tap this. I think like about how there's an author named Jennifer Hayes. She's a researcher out of Ontario, and she talks a lot about how essentially stressors in life need to be assimilated. She talks about the difference between homeostasis and allostasis. So my quick little scientific off the chart thingy is so homeostasis is basically your body is intentionally trying to regulate your diet to decrease satiety, increase your caloric intake, right? and to decrease your movement pattern. Because in a context biologically where humans are constantly moving, then the emphasized thing needs to be recovery. Recovery by eating and recovery by resting. And like the blue zone, like regions that you're talking about, that's basically the context that they live in. They live in this context where they're constantly moving, they're constantly like doing something. And so the biological factors that emphasize like recovery and eating is going to be, it's going to like come out to like a net value of like balance essentially.
Yeah.
Whereas in the West, because we move so little, significantly less than what we are biologically orientated to do, then we are constantly like our biological and limbic disposition to consuming a lot of calories and moving pretty little. Now the net result is not balance. The net result is we're way in the deficit of like how much we're supposed to be moving and how active we're supposed to be. And it's really interesting because she basically talks about how this term allostasis talks about how your sense of homeostasis can actually be assimilated. So if you go, this up here is what would stress me out. Say going to the gym is like super, super, super stressful. And say I'm like here. This is my comfort zone. This is going to the gym. I can't go from 0 to 100. I can't go into the gym because my brain is going to associate such a high level of stress to that thing that it's harder to assimilate it. It's harder for that allostasis piece to come in because my brain's going to be like, you know, get used to this. And it's like, yeah, but this is like so extreme. Whereas like going for a walk might be a little bit out of the comfort zone, but say going for a walk once a week.
Yeah.
But then if you can do that, then your brain kind of goes, oh, this isn't too bad. And that homeostasis standard shifts a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you go for a walk 2 times a week, and then 3 times a week, and 4 times a week. Maybe at the time that you can go for a walk 4 times a week, you can start adding like some push-ups into your routine or whatever. So it's interesting being like if you were to like model yourself off of like blue zone, blue zones, then or if you were to like look at it from like a neurobiological perspective, like what Dr. Hayes talks about, then going into a gym might not even be like the necessary step. It might just be go for a walk. It might be you have like your bucket of KFC that you've been eating every single day. Start adding some broccoli to that, or you know, carrots or whatever. And people don't. I think people feel really dumb about the idea of being in the gray area, but I don't know why. Like people go, oh, but if I'm only like making baby steps, then are my steps even like helpful? And it's like, well, from maybe from like a nutritional perspective, or like from a revolutionizing the state of your heart perspective, maybe those little additions are not going to make dramatic changes, but at the very least, it pushes you neurologically and emotionally into a state where you can start taking on more changes that have bigger health impacts.
Yeah.
So it's just even if you were to like water it down to purely neurobiology, like those little steps can have dramatic changes into your life just by pushing you out of your comfort zone. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. No, I think like, you know, the idea that, you know, an individual might not think that some of those very small changes might not make a difference is like, for me, I think one of the biggest barriers, or I guess not barriers, just like obstacles or like very continuing conversations I have to have with clients they have questions about stuff they've seen on like Instagram or Facebook or whatever, name your social media, and it's like these fit influencer people that like if you don't have a 3.5 hour morning routine, like you're not a healthy person.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
Like, sure, is there probably some value in like having some repeatable things maybe in the morning? Probably. Like routine's probably pretty good, especially if it's healthy routine.
Yeah.
But like there's these overboard things that everyone sees now from, you name them, and you're getting these questions about it. It's like you said, it's like really small little things can like start to make those changes. It doesn't have to be all in on day one.
No.
Because most of the time that leads to day 5 and you're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like that 75 hard thing, I hate it. And I'm probably like I'm like biased. Like I think doing hard things and like more mentally tough things I think is benefit. But like for most people, like doing 75 hard is stupid.
Right.
Like do 75 like a little bit more difficult than you did your last 75. And for some people that might be doing 10 walks in 75 days.
Yeah. I think also like people will, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't like really use like the acronym SMART goals very much in my day. I remember in my undergrad, like everyone was like, write out your SMART goals. And it was definitely a thing. And now it's like, well, the principle is valuable. But that being said, the way that it is actually super valuable is often people will go, well, I'm making one change. It's like, no, you're not. You're making like a dozen changes. If you're like someone who your day routine is you wake up, you make yourself a coffee, you put cream and sugar in it. No, black coffee all the way.
Sure.
You wake up, you don't have any water, you just wake up, crush your coffee, you watch like cartoons or scroll, and then you go to work, and then you spend like the first hour of your work kind of like mentally not being there, and then your coworker comes in and there's like a box of donuts and you crush your donuts, then you get your sugar crash, your last like 45 minutes to an hour, you're like looking at the clock waiting to go home, and then you go home, you crush a beer, watch more TV, scroll more, and then go to bed. Like if that's like your day and someone's like, you know what you need to do, you need to start going to the gym, and they're like, oh, like that's only one change. It's like, no, that's not just one change. That's like your schedule's changing, your heart rate variability, like even if you went into the physiology, like your heart rate variability and like your energy expenditure is like totally out of whack to like how you're usually doing it. Like you have to go, like even like little things like, when are you going to work out? Are you going to work out after work? Okay, well then if you're going to work out after work, then all of a sudden you're showering after you work out, and that could change your bedtime routine. And it's not to say that you don't add things because there's like a cascade of results, because add positive things and often the cascade of results are positive.
Yeah.
It's just that sometimes people need to go, well, I'm only changing one thing. It's like, well, like you're not, your brain doesn't interpret it as changing one thing. Your brain interprets it as like a big old disruption to like what your typical
what you're
is.
used to.
I don't know, what would be like in that scenario, like what would be a more tangible, like a single step?
Well, that Atomic Habits book, like he talks about literally doing, if your goal is like most people, I want to work out 3 days a week, and you haven't been working out 1 day a week, let alone 3, it's like step 1, maybe like just leave your gym strip by the door before the next day. And if you've done it, that's one thing. That's putting your stuff in a bag and having it there just cause.
Yeah.
And then maybe it's actually getting your stuff ready, putting it in your vehicle. If you go, whether you go or not, it's the other thing. Where he talks about maybe it's just put on I was joking about that the other day, your gym costume.
Your gym costume.
Your gym costume. Yeah. Go put on your shorts, tank, whatever it is. And hey, that was more than you probably did the other 50 days.
Yeah.
Like that's one change. And it probably ends up leading to you actually going to the gym or going for a walk, or the lowest barrier of entry. Like it's crazy how like that seems like so small. That's like adding broccoli to your KFC.
Yeah.
Like it's like what the heck's that gonna do? It's like, well, it might do more than you think in like a 30, 40, 50 day period.
Yeah.
Because like most people aren't where they're at because of a 10-day skid.
Yeah.
It's like there's been something going on for quite a few years for you to end up where you are. Like it's gonna take you, like you may as well give yourself the runway and time to slowly make the change too.
Totally.
So then it'll be the same in 5 years. It'll be like, wow, look at where I'm at. but it's also not going to go away then the next day if you have a bad day, if you gave yourself that kind of runway.
Yes. I really like that. I think that like I was just thinking about like rural contexts where like if there's things that are like geographical to a rural context, that could be like your broccoli and your KFC. Like the gym strip thing is good. I do you think that there are like other barriers that like inhibit or necessitate like a diversion from big plans into like little plans, kind of like we were talking about, but are like geographic specific? Like if going for a walk, for example, instead of going to the gym, required you to go for a walk in like minus 25 degrees Celsius, like what do you think are some like northern or rural contexts that can like really inhibit
Yeah, I mean,
those little steps?
Like you said, obviously winters are more difficult and whatnot. Like you have those challenges. But even rural spots, like that could be one of the changes eventually for like if it's not the gym, it's just trying to be more active. And you normally have you live even out of town and you have a longer quote unquote commute, which we in rural communities we feel is long. Urban centers might feel like that's the shortest commute ever.
Totally.
But for us it's a an 8-minute drive feels like forever, especially for some people, right? It could be just like starting to wake up a little bit earlier so you could like bike to work at some point.
Yeah.
Like, and the small change is just I'm gonna wake up 5 minutes earlier than I normally do for like a little bit at a time until you've woke up now an hour earlier or whatever that number is. You can still do what you feel like you normally would do in the morning, but now you have the runway to go for a bike ride to get to work.
I like what you do as well, and I know like my wife has this as well with like having a sunrise lamp. Like I honestly think in like a context where we wake up and it's like 8 a.m. and it's still pitch black, it's pretty hard to motivate yourself to do anything in the morning, which is ironic because like I listened to a really good podcast by Andrew Huberman who talks about when we are the most receptive to doing uncomfortable things. And he talks about how, for the most part, whether you're a morning person or not a morning person, the average human is more susceptible or more willing to interact with things that they find uncomfortable in the morning, which is like really interesting. So like if there's like chores or habits that you just like struggle with, as the day goes on, you are going to be like less and less and less likely to complete those things because your energy is just being used up throughout the day.
Yeah.
And how like you could go, oh well, then you should like start doing your exercises in the morning. But it's like if you're waking up in the morning before work, it's pitch black. Like the energy that your brain is receiving from the sun is at its lowest point as well. So there's kind of this weird like juxtaposition there. But I like the lamp idea.
Yeah, I mean, I love the lamp. That's a plug for. It's probably on Amazon, but
yeah, we won't give any specific brands until they start sponsoring us.
Yeah, but no, I think that's when you think of especially like northern rural, right? Like it starts getting darker for a lot longer.
Yeah,
and I mean that's a huge barrier for people like the seasonal
affective disorder.
Seasonal effect. There we go.
Sad.
Yeah, it's a thing, big time, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Finding ways to combat it, and I think we could probably do a whole episode on that, most likely.
About things, affective disorder.
Yeah, like things to. But I think it's definitely a barrier we have, and usually it's like it's not like you have to do these drastic changes for that either. Like, it's just a quick conversation with someone and been like, you're going to wake up, it's going to be dark. You're going to go home, it's going to be dark. Like, we can't change that.
Yeah.
But in the middle of the day, it will be light. And, I mean, one of the cool things about the North is generally, maybe outside of, these next couple weeks of November, it's usually a little bit more dreary and cloudy. But, like, come December, like, middle of the day, it's usually pretty bright. Like, you can get a whole lot of health benefits from at lunch, get away from your desk for 2 minutes. You don't have to scarf down lunch as you're putting stuff into Excel. Like, take 5 minutes, go for a walk, come back. Those 5 minutes will be that much more productive on the back end of those next 55 minutes in that hour.
Yeah.
Than if you would have like stuffed your face with whatever and tried to work at the same time while you were on your phone. Yeah, you name it.
Yeah, for sure. I over the weekend I had a conversation with a friend of mine who is in a leadership position or an authority position. I don't know. But he essentially was talking about how when you're in an authority position, kind of like us, there's this tendency that leaders or people who are, in leadership positions, that they will present ideas rather than directives, because it's easier to think that if we go, well, here's some ideas that you can toy around with. If you live in the rural north, sorry, this is long-winded, but if you're in the rural north, here's some ideas about how you can be healthier. Then people can kind of take it or they can leave it. And it feels like there's no skin, there's no skin in the game for us, because we don't have to present an actual action that someone can either do or not do. Yeah. But if someone's listening to this and you were to be like, we're not just gonna, instead of we're giving you a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Outside of ideas, if you were to challenge someone to do something in a rural context that would make them healthier, what would you do? What would be your challenge?
What would be that you don't go a day without doing this?
It doesn't have to be a daily thing, but something that people can start doing this week, next week, to create habits that are actually going to make them healthier. Something that that when we ask them and we go hey, did you do this?
Yeah. They're
going to have to say yes or no. Not just go, oh yeah, I listened to it and it gave me a lot of things to think about. I'm going to think about it in the future.
Yeah. I mean, I would literally say I got to say a time, right?
Yeah.
We're saying do this.
Do it.
I don't know I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head where the benefits start, so I'm going to probably overball it, and I think that's better anyways. But I'm saying every day.
Okay.
20 minutes a day. You go on a walk, preferably when it is bright out.
Yeah.
So probably midday right now, roughly.
Yeah.
And bring a friend.
Nice. There you go.
Do that every day.
That's good.
For the next 6 months. And I think you'll notice huge difference in mood being one.
Yeah.
The social connection that we've talked about being another.
Yeah.
And depending on where you're currently at physically active wise, you could see a lot of benefits there. And there's going to be a whole bunch of underlying benefits for cardiovascular stuff, but you might not notice those as much, other than if you play a game of pickup soccer now and in 6 months play a game again, you'd probably notice them.
Right. What was
you might actually, I guess you would notice it on your walk. You might if you're talking for those 20 minutes on day one, you might feel quite winded.
Yeah.
And on day 180,
yeah,
you'd probably be able to talk twice as much and not feel winded.
Yeah. What was the time frame that you said?
20 minutes.
20 minutes?
I think 20 minutes. That's doable, yeah.
I think 20 minutes is doable. And I would say 20 minutes, go for a 20-minute walk, bring a friend, with the recognition that your willingness to do those 20 minutes is going to decrease as the day goes through. So maybe starting off your day.
Your first coffee break.
Yeah, your first coffee break, go for a 20-minute walk. And if someone doesn't have, I put you on the spot, so maybe I'll come up with something. So if you don't have a friend to go with, or you're at that point where the social anxiety of asking someone to go for a walk is too low, a couple things that you can do. One, you can start listening to a podcast. Recording Rural.
See us on Spotify, YouTube.
Exactly. See us on Spotify and YouTube. Start listening to podcasts. Another thing that you can start doing, because I know that I have some friends, and I really like this idea, where there's almost this nature-esque sort of element of going out for a walk, and it certainly helps me go for walks outside, where I essentially pick a time, usually around sunrise, or some other time where I'm going to have access to something that's beautiful, right? When it's pitch black, I kind of go, that's when social company is great because there's like nothing to see.
Yeah.
Right. And also it's kind of sketchy to put your headphones in and
Yeah.
walk around at night, you know. But going out for your 20-minute walk and trying to actually like look for something that's beautiful, like something that's nature-esque, like I think is super fantastic.
It's forest bathing.
Forest bathing,
I think is the term. I can't remember exactly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Forest bathe. Go and like look at, I don't know, like when you're in a rural environment, like honestly, unless you've ever lived in a city, like people who, I don't know, man, like I remember when I was living in Vancouver and I had a friend from Alaska and we went to Stanley Park or something and there was a bunch of people taking pictures in front of a tree in Stanley Park. and my buddy from Alaska turns to me and he's like, you know what's sad? That right there is going to be the highlight of their day. And I was like, and he was, you know, I think he was being a little
tongue in cheek,
yeah. A little condescending, but it was kind of crazy to us where I'm like, it was him pointing out that like being around trees in Vancouver, like is just, you know, not common.
Mm-hmm.
And like here you can like
that photo will never do it justice.
Yeah.
If you would have like, and not that I can go crazy all about trees or whatever because we see them all the time, but like. It's like you take a photo of something, you're like, oh, this is awesome. You take a photo and you like go to show family and friends like after a trip.
Yeah,
Look at this. And like you can tell they're like, oh, it looks pretty nice. And you're like, through my eyes, it was awesome. But the photo's never going to do it.
No, but like in a town like Smithers or like in other towns that are very outdoorsy, you can like go and look for a Vancouver level photograph, like, you know, every 30 seconds you're gonna see a tree that like is a Vancouver photograph level.
Best part of their day.
Exactly.
And you can see 30 of them.
And you can see 30 of them.
Yeah.
And you could like, you know, like when we were in, I think about like up here in Smithers where we have Twin Falls, and Twin Falls is beautiful. And I remember going to Banff on my honeymoon, which, you know, wasn't interesting. And it was very touristy. And we stood in line. I don't even remember why we stood in line. I think we were just like, oh yeah, we're in Banff. Let's do like a Banff thing. So we went to go see like a waterfall. And it was like about as impressive as the Twin Falls waterfall area. Only we waited in line for about 30 minutes to like get.
So the anticipation
was brutal. It was, yeah.
It's like, I just want to see it.
Yeah, I just want to see it. And like, so to be like, oh yeah, okay, so this week you're going to do your 20-minute walk. If you don't have a friend and it's like not an appropriate time to walk around with headphones, then like start looking for those nature things. I don't know, like take a picture of it and put it on your Instagram or I don't care, whatever. But like go and look for those outdoor experiences that will kind of make you go, oh yeah, the outdoors is kind of nice. I kind of want to be. I just want to spend more time out here.
If you, a spot to try it. Like off the top of my head,
here in town,
in Smithers, would be, you know, not like walking on the highway is awesome. Maybe go on the frontage road or whatever, but from like not the Toyota, the Dodge dealership. Go walk up that frontage road and just like as you're walking up, you see more and more of the mountain. It was whenever I had like left for a while and came back. Like now I'll never notice it because you're blind to the things when you see it all the time. But if you slowly walk up or you're going up that hill and all of a sudden you start seeing the runs and like the whole mountain, you're like, holy crap, like if this was my first time coming here, this would blow people's mind. And it usually does. And be a starting point. Try that one out.
There you go. And I don't know. Take a picture of it and
send it to us.
Send it to us.
Yeah.
Send us a picture of the mountains on your 20-minute walk.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. How'd we do? That's not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
Talked about some barriers.
Recording rural.
Episode 5.
Right?
Cheers.